Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Riccone. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here
Good
we
morning.
Are, working on things of the covenant still, and we're having fun doing it. We've been exciting to always understand about the life of God, which is the life of the resurrection, what we call the covenant. I'm going to bless. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. I mean, it's lots of wonderful things about that life that is absolute. If we begin to understand it, that it's not kinda, and it's not, are we lucky or not? And most people aren't. But rather, it's if we have a heart to go with Him, which is what we just finished. This last session was God's loyal to the covenant, and uses that word loving kindness, or the word in the Hebrew is mercy a lot of times. But underneath it all, the Hebrew word is covenant loyalty.
Yeah, I do. Personally, for me, like some of those verses even that you have shared about, just again, that He is indeed loyal to the covenant. Those, when I feel discouraged or I'm not seeing the movement that I expect to be seeing in something at that time, those are anchor verses for me to come back and remind myself, regardless of what I am seeing or experiencing right now, my God is a God who's loyal to the covenant.
Right.
And there's a sweetness in being able to go back and stand on that truth and be reminded. And I think even, when we were recently out there visiting you guys, how fun it was. We all went out to dinner and we walked out, and lo and behold, there was a rainbow.
Yeah, that's right.
Once again, just reminding us, covenant. I am a God who is faithful to the covenant, And so there's some sweet encouragement, I think, in what we're talking about, as well as learning to walk and live in it, just remembering who He is.
Yep. With the, Linda had her birthday recently, and we walked outside here in Colorado, and there was a double rainbow. Complete, half a circle from the ground to the ground, and it was brilliant. The lower one was completely brilliant, and every color spectrum was completely brilliant. And then the one above it was not quite as brilliant, but it was all complete and whole from one end to the other, and the entire spectrum. So
that's beautiful.
That was Linda. Just felt God saying, "And I'm doubly committed, to the covenant. For
this
you.
Is who I am."
Because the rainbow. And interesting, the covenant actually has a couple of signs. One is the rainbow that was given to Abraham. Given to Noah. That I'm going to give you a sign that the covenant will be absolute, and you can trust it. And I think He gave us that one because it's always so visible. Literally to everybody around the world has a chance periodically to see rainbows because of there's rain.
And it's a reminder, yes.
It's a reminder. So I think He purposely picked that for us to remind, hey, by the way, I am loyal to the covenant. And then circumcision. For the followers of Christ and Jews, of course, when they were circumcised, is do you believe that I'm going to mark you, and that you're marked,
set you apart,
and that you're set apart, and that you're mine, and because of that, it's a reminder. I want to be a reminder to you that I'm loyal to the covenant, and then of course we know that the aspect of the Jews, and when they became believers in Jesus' time, and Paul and the church, there became a group of Jews that said, hey, by the way, in addition to receiving Christ, you need to be circumcised.
Right.
And
again, there was a lot of debate over that.
A lot of debate and concern about it, because it seemed like the receiving Christ was a heart thing, and you were adding a physical thing. And so I'm not sure about that. Now the Jews who thought about it it wasn't such a bad idea because they understood it. And even now Messianic Jews understand it even better than typical evangelicals, is when you become a believer, you step into the life of the covenant.
Right.
You're going to be blessed to be a blessing. That's your life now, because that's God. That's the nature of God. And so they thought, well, by the way, shouldn't you then have that mark? And of course, they processed it, and God said no. He said the mark is your heart. And Paul writes about that in Colossians chapter 2. He says, circumcision is circumcising your heart. I'm going to mark your heart. Yes, I'm going to identify you as mine. You're marked. It's a heart thing. And by the way, you should understand something. It is circumcision. What? A sign of the covenant. Because I'm loyal to the covenant when? All the time, for everybody that has a heart to follow me. Remember, the covenant's an agreement. So it's both sides of the deal. God says, I'm ready to deliver my side. You have to come with me for me to give it to you. You have to be living with me. I can't give it to you when you're walking away from me. Come with me. Even though you're a believer, I can't give you the covenant, just like to the Jews. Think about the Jews nation. His promise was what? I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing.
Right.
Okay. How come they went through periods of not being blessed, actually having difficulty? Long periods of opposition from God himself. So how did that work? He said, I'm loyal to the covenant, but then they said, well,
there's two sides to the covenant, though.
Yeah.
And they have to be keeping their side as well.
Yeah, because they rejected the walking with him and said, we're going to go do it ourselves and worship other things, and we don't care. And God says, well, you've disqualified my ability. My heart is to give you the covenant because I'm loyal to it. You have to stay with me. And so we talked last time, is, well, stay in that in that covenant loyalty. And you just said it. What does that look like? Well, life is troublesome. Every day there's stuff, business stuff. There's hardship. There's funny things coming on the news all the time. Oh man, how crazy is that? Or how difficult is this? Or how strenuous is this? Linda and I just went, to the fireworks down at Rockies, and we had a great time. But I can tell you, it was strenuous. It was just a lot of stuff that had to get done properly, and people just aren't ready for it, and getting parking and just all this stuff and getting out of there. It was just. Nothing's easy, and by the way, there's 60,000, almost 60,000 fans because it's fireworks night. Right. But there weren't any
all departing at the same time.
There weren't any policemen out there that were
really. So that's fascinating. I'm surprised.
So the roads are backed up, and the people are trying to walk across the roads, and the people can't move, and that's what causes gridlock, because nobody's paying attention. Well, it's strenuous, it's difficult. So life is tough, and like you said, even in the middle of that stuff, God says, well, remember something. I'm loyal to the covenant. I'm going to resolve this. I'm going to give you a place where you're blessed to be a blessing. You can count on it. Now, the key is, don't ask me how and don't ask me when, because that's what we would like to know. It's like, hey, I want it right now, and tell me how you're going to do it. He says, well, I'm going to do it supernaturally, so I can't tell you the how. You won't be able to understand it anyway. And then 2 is, I didn't say when I'm going to deliver it to you. I'm going to deliver it to you. Walk with me, knowing, that I'm loyal to the covenant. So it's a big deal. Oh, this next one is, as you are walking with me in the covenant, he said one of the things that's important is for you to stay in unity. And we're going to define what that means. Is that it's both a way to determine that you're with me and to receive what I'm about ready to give you. So if you would read Psalm 133.
Sure. It says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious oil upon the head, running down the beard of Aaron, running down on the edge of his garments. It's like the dew of Hermon descending upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, life ever forevermore.
Yeah. So he says how good, exceptional, fantastic, over the top, spectacular, and pleasant is joyful, full of adventure, full of excitement, when brothers and sisters dwell together in what?
In unity.
In unity. You dwell in unity, which means the word there is you live with the principle of unity. And in other words, everything you do, you go to unity and get there because you're dwelling with it, you're living with it. It's not you decide once in a while you need it. He says, no, live that way. And he says, when you process that, and when you seek unity, he says there, what does he do?
He commands blessing.
I command the blessing. Okay, now this is born out of the covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. He says how? Well, when you come into unity, you're at a place where you've discovered my will. And because you've discovered my will, which is, I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing, I will command it so it's going to happen. And remember, the blessing isn't a generic blessing. It's a specific one. To who? To me. For what? What I need right now, the resolution I need right now, the relationship issue I have right now, the circumstance I have right now, is God says, well, let me turn that into a blessing.
Right. And by the way, that will always be flow through as well.
It's always going to be flow through because then you'll be giving it away. I'm going to make you a blessing. Okay. Well, it's important to understand unity. It's not you and me, or you and Dan or Linda and I. Hey, let's negotiate something that, okay, does that work?
Right. It is not compromise.
It's not compromise, and it's not negotiation where, and by the way, in business, this is generally what we're good at, is that, okay, you want this, I want this. Tell you what, how about if I give here, you give there, we meet in the middle somewhere, and isn't that a good idea? We would consider that to be, well, we're in unity because we're in agreement. He says, well, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm not talking about you guys going off and negotiating a settlement. He says unity is with me.
Right.
And again, think about how beautiful this is. Okay, why? Well, number one, he says, I know more than you. I can deliver more than you. I have the power to create, command what I'm going to do to deliver this blessing because my spiritual life is superior to the physical life. And he says, I have a will about that. I know the answer already. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I can deliver. And what I need you to do when I say unity, God speaking, is join me to reach understanding of what I already know I want to deliver, and I need you to be at that same place.
Right. There's a quote, I've shared it on here before, but I'd love to read it again if you don't mind, from A.W. Tozer on unity, that I think paints a beautiful picture of this, of coming to unity with the Spirit. And it says, has it ever occurred to you that 100 pianos all tuned to the same fork are automatically tuned to each other? They're in one accord by being in tune, not to each other, but to another standard to which one must individually bow. To be unified together with Christ at the center, we must tune ourselves to Christ, not to each other.
Right.
When we take our relationship with God seriously, he brings the unity.
That's right.
And I just think that's a great picture of what it is really to come to unity with each other through the Holy Spirit, and really tuning ourselves to him first. And as we both do that, that brings the unity between us.
Yeah. And think about, remember how he delivers it. He said it's by faith. Faith in what? Faith in what I say,
right?
What I speak, and what you now understand is my will, because it hasn't yet happened, but now you know it and you believe it, and it will happen. Why? Because I'm loyal to the covenant, and there I will command the blessing. Where you and your spouse, where you and your friend, if you're single, where you and your inner circle come together and say, I can confirm that we now understand God's will, and we're in unity with Him. And again, think how beautiful this is that since it's not an intellectual thing, it doesn't mean it doesn't tell us to abandon our intellect, because we process, we discuss, we understand, what does that mean? What is God saying? We do use our mind. So it's not we get rid of it, but we don't rely on it to make our decision. Rather, it's revelation of what God says, now here's my will. And the beautiful thing is that that if you're not in unity with God, remember it's with God,
Right.
what will He do?
He will bring you to unity with Him if you have a surrendered heart.
Well, as you're trying to get to unity and you think maybe I'm in unity or I'm not sure, or isn't this God's will, but it's not, what will He do? He'll trouble you.
Right. And that's where that peace of God will rule or umpire your heart. It's an important
So
thing to pay attention to.
he's gonna throw what I call a holy uncomfortableness. No, something's not right yet. I don't have that absolute, what I call holy yes. And that's why I had to learn this with Linda, by the way, is that because I was fairly intellectual. And so as we're trying to make decisions, which a lot of people know, I made a few that got us in big trouble. Linda, I want to do this. She'd say, I don't feel good about that. I'd say, why not? I don't know. Well, then I'm doing it. Because you don't have any logical reason for me not to do it. And what I didn't understand until I got this idea of unity, finally understood it, is, hey, Rich, it's not logic. It's not about logic. Again, it's not that I ask you to throw it out the window, but don't rely on it as your answer. Rather, it's spiritual. And when your spouse says, something's not right yet, that's me. He said, I'm doing that. By the way, I'm going to teach you to do that too. So when you're working towards something, I think I might have it, and you have that little bit of uncomfortableness, He's going to teach you to pay attention to that. Like, wait a minute.
Now, so can you talk a little bit about the difference between, if you can clarify this at all, but the difference between that uncomfortableness that we know as, okay, God's not giving us peace, and somebody living in fear. And so, because there is a difference between the two. There is the disrupted peace that God gives us as an indicator, and then we're just plain living in fear.
Yeah. Well, think about fear. Think about worry. Think about I'm not sure. I got to make sure. A lot of people who tend to be what I call perfectionist. I got to make sure it's right. And if it's not perfectly 100% right, I can't do it because I feel uncomfortable. That's how they feel.
Right.
Is that, well, I'm uncomfortable. So how do I distinguish, all that? That's a great question. So first of all, those things are coming from what's called the flesh, the self, the sin nature, which is, am I going to be perfect at this? No.
Right.
Are certain things going to stimulate fear? Yes. Are they going to stimulate doubt? Yes. Am I going to stimulate, man, I don't really think I'd like to do that, so that there are certain things that I could say to Linda, hey, I believe we're supposed to. Her first response is going to be no. For a couple of reasons. One, because my personality tends to be more of a risk taker. It's like, well, let's just get going, and we'll take care of it later, and it doesn't bother me. It's kind of exciting to be a risk taker. For her, she's kind of the opposite. I don't want to take many risks at all. Okay, well, there's a conflict right there.
Right.
Number two is I might be saying something. I think I've shared this story before, and I won't go into the detail of it, but when we were asked to sell our condo, Linda naturally said, I don't think so. I don't want to because. And so because of that, there's an aspect of, well, we're going to have uncomfortableness. Okay. Now, here's what I learned. in a sense, what I learned is don't worry and don't try to distinguish everything about it. Just receive it as you're not there yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Okay, because does it matter that Linda's afraid? No. Does it matter that her first thought is, I don't want to do this? No.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that does matter.
Okay. She has a heart willing to go, right?
To go where?
To go to Unity and seek his wisdom.
To seek God's will, because God says, if you're in unity and I'm loyal to the covenant, I'm going to get you to unity. What? I'll get you confirmed of my will, and I'll do the work. Now, by the way, all it takes is a heart to go.
That's good.
That's it. So that I can ask Linda, are you afraid? Yeah? Okay. Go spend some time with God and see what he would say at just about that. Are you not wanting to do this? Are you neutral? Right. Not really. Okay.
Yeah. And in that point, you're not even asking her, how she feels about what the decision is, but how is the state of your heart in terms of being neutral to going to God's will?
Well, because, and this is what I had to learn, is when I say that to her, see, I haven't said, well, I'm making that decision.
Right.
See, I've taken that off the table. It's like, well, I'm not making any decision until we get to unity. That means I got to go to neutral.
That's beautiful.
I've got to overcome my fear. I got to overcome my thought, including Linda could say, I think that's pretty risky. I can't say, well, yeah, but I think it's a good thing anyway. Do I want? See, the question comes to both of us. Well, do I want God's will?
Right.
God might be
Are we both willing to go to
God
neutral?
might be using Linda to prevent me from doing something that I think is a good idea, but it's stupid. And so we just keep going. So here's what I learned. I don't categorize it. Well, yeah, but that's spirit and you're flesh. God says, what do you care? All you care about.
I can bring the unity if you have the heart to go.
If you have a heart to go, I'll go. Stay with it. And by the way, if it is me, which a lot of times it is, I got to show you something new because you're not going the right direction or you're not seeing the right thing yet. And I'm the one.
And there's a reason for this pause.
I'm the one causing you this unholy dissatisfaction. And trust it. But when you get to my will, guess what? Everybody's going to see it.
And there will be peace in that.
And he says nothing's too hard for me. Your wife's fear doesn't matter. It's okay. I can get through there. And then he said he says, Rich, the biggest thing for you is get out of the way. Because
awesome.
if you hammer, think about how and I realized how absurd this was. Well, Linda, you're afraid. You got to get over your fear. That just causes her more fear.
Right. And more anxiety.
And more anxiety and like, oh my, I got to do it. And I don't want to be the cause of this. But I'm afraid. I truly am afraid.
And it will spiral. That will just spiral.
And he says, what do you care? If you have a heart to go, walk together. I'll get you there 100%. And I use unity because there I command blessing. Okay, now this is cool.
That's good.
Linda and I learned this, and this is why we're willing to go. We discovered there, God commands it happens. And we realized, then why wouldn't we want to do that?
Right.
Why would we not want to go to unity and have God command the blessing? His will is best and none better, and it proves to be better. And my view is limited, and I don't have it all the time, and I can't see around the corner. You know what? Why don't we go to unity? Now, it's not a false unity. It's not, okay, let's just get the unity in there. Nope. It's got to be real, and that's why it's spiritual. So I actually need Linda if she doesn't feel comfortable. And it doesn't matter. Are you afraid is because you don't want to? It doesn't matter. If you have a heart to stay there, God will get us there. And I need you to maintain that until you get that holy yes.
And see, and what you're saying there is even so important, because I think sometimes we do get weary or lazy. And in that's why we don't maintain it. We just go ahead and cave to the other person rather than staying with it long enough to let God bring us to the unity so that we can step into the blessing.
Yeah. And either what happens is, I don't want to be the cause of this. So if we get to unity, that'll be God's blessing, right?
Right.
And you cave, and God said, actually, no, because you didn't go to unity with me. You just caved for the process. I said, you didn't even spend the time to get there, and won. So no, that's not it. The other thing is that I'm so intent on Linda following what I think is right that I push, and she finally just says, I give up.
You wear her down.
I wore her down.
Reaching real unity.
And we didn't have any joy in that, and that's where the energy comes up. And and defensiveness.
That's an important one. Go back to that real quick, because even in you're not in unity yet on a decision, and you just described, you said we didn't have the joy in that if we skip the process. So there's joy even in the middle of the disagreement.
Yeah.
When you're both seeking God, because you're sitting and you're waiting for him to show up and do what only he can do, and bearing witness to the supernatural as he brings you to unity.
Yeah.
That's why there's joy even in the middle of that.
That's right. And it's born, out of a deep respect. And that is that, and the joy is there because of it. Is like, if Linda says, I don't really agree with that at the moment, because of that deep respect for that, and the joy of discovering God's will.
Yes.
See, we look at it as, it's okay. We just don't yet know God's will.
It's part of the adventure.
This ought to be fun. And hey, Linda, tell me more about that. Share your heart more. What do you see in here? What do you understand here? And a lot of times she says, I'm not even sure yet. I said, okay, why don't you process a little bit further and see what thoughts come to you. And I'd love to hear what you have to say. Not, I want you to change your mind. Not, you better do what I want. It's like, I really want to hear what you have to say. Because why? It's going to lead us to God's will, which is best and none better. So that the element, what you're saying is, we've learned there's joy in that process. And if there's not joy, something is off all by itself, and I'm pushing too hard to get my answer. And my energy has come up, and I'm frustrated. As opposed to, why would you be frustrated? You just don't know yet, including, and we've worked at this, I don't even lay a timeline on it. Well, yeah, but we got to know. And sometimes, if we don't let him know, we're going to lose it. We lose it. It's okay.
Then you lose it. Yeah.
We just lose it.
God can restore that in a heartbeat if he wants to.
It's not a problem. And he knows the timeline. If he wants us to get there, he'll get there. So, see, life in the covenant is trusting that I'm with God. He says, where there's blessing, I'm going to command it. And just finish this issue of unity on 1 Peter 3:8. He makes a statement. 1 Peter 3:8.
Sure. He says, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tenderhearted, be courteous.
Yeah. So he says, finally, be of one mind. In other words, keep working toward unity. That's one of the key principles of life. And remember, it's unity with God, not negotiation. He said, think about how cool this is. Because why? Well, because you discover God's will. You know that you know that you know. We now believe it. You confirmed it. I confirmed it. Together, now we can hardly wait to see it play out.
Right.
Is this going to be fantastic? And see, God doesn't say unity is, I'm gonna cause you great harm. He doesn't say that. He says, my invitation, even when you're walking the wrong way, is, well, why don't you repent and come with me and let me restore this problem, this issue you got. And so we've learned that unity is such a critical piece of the covenant of, do I have a heart to go? Remember, it's to go to seek God's will.
Right.
My partner, my spouse, my kids, my inner circle, do we have a heart to go together? Am I willing, when I don't feel comfort, when somebody else is looking for an answer, and I get that little bit of a dissatisfaction, am I willing to speak up and say, you know what, I don't think you're there yet. stay with it a little bit longer, because I don't feel yet we have confirmation. In my spirit, there's something not right here. Just keep going. And that's a little bit of a tough place, because you almost like, I don't want to be the one to keep them from doing something. But God says, no, actually, I need you to speak up in a respectful, honorable way. Why?
Good. Yeah.
Because, well, just invite him to go, and you go, and don't worry, I'll get you there. It's a beautiful thing. So unity. But remember, it's unity with the Spirit, oneness with him. He's in all of us. He's in both of us. He's in our inner circle. And what a privilege it is to live that way, and says you can.
And it's such a gift.
It's a gift, because there I'm going to command blessing. So we'll pick this up again, and we'll talk more about, next time we're going to talk about sowing and reaping, a little bit of this aspect of how we pour into that process of actually going to unity. So that'll be kind of fun to do.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Rich. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you found today encouraging, and just have more things to go back and process with God as
Amen.
he teaches you more about stepping into his covenant life.
Amen. All right.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.